Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. Each year in June, the reconstitution of the Russell indexes take place in what's called the Russell Reconstitution. On June 27, 2025, over $10.5 trillion in investor assets will be rebalanced. Last year, over 2.9 billion shares and $95.3 billion were traded at the close of the Russell Reconstitution, executed in the closing cross in just under 1 second across Nasdaq-listed securities. After markets close on Friday, June 27th, the changes become final, and the updated indexes begin running Monday, June 30th, when markets open. For the 22nd consecutive year, the Nasdaq closing cross will be used to rebalance Nasdaq-listed securities in the entire family of Russell U.S. indexes. The rebalance is designed to ensure that the Russell U.S. indexes continue to accurately reflect the ever-changing state of the U.S. equity market and its segments. Joining me to discuss the importance of the Russell Reconstitution to the market and investors, we have Giang Bui, head of U.S. Equities and ETPs at Nasdaq, Catherine Yoshimoto, director of product management at FTSE Russell, Kathy Kellert, head of index equity product at Vanguard, and Johan Sandblom, president of Lime Trading. It is great to have all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. And Catherine, it's a number of years we've been doing this, so welcome back to the show for the Recon. Why is the Russell Reconstitution so important for the U.S. market and investors?
It's so important to the U.S. market to reconstitute the Russell U.S. indexes completely once a year annually. And by the way, side note, next year we'll be going to a semi-annual reconstitution, but it is absolutely critical that the U.S. indexes, the Russell U.S. indexes, reflect the markets accurately. And because markets change, it's really important that this rebalancing brings the indexes back in line with what the markets are showing.
And Zhang, from the exchange perspective, why is the Russell Reconstitution such a big deal for markets and investors?
Yeah, I mean, Catherine talked about how important Russell is as a benchmark for the market. So, the Russell Reconstitution at the end of the end of June is really one of the biggest trading day of the year, as funds that are tracking the Russell indexes reconstitute as well to ensure that they're properly tracking the index. And it's really there's a lot of benefits to being added to the Russell indexes. Every year hundreds of companies are added and deleted from the indexes, and Nasdaq is the listing venue for many of the companies that are added. To be added to one of these indexes, it provides natural liquidity into the stock. It really helps with capital formation and just overall a better trading experience for investor into that stock.
And Kathy, how does Vanguard view the upcoming Russell Reconstitution in relation to the suite of Russell ETFs?
Yeah, so it's a big deal for our trading teams at Vanguard. We have 7 ETFs that track Russell benchmarks. And these ETFs, we spend time well in advance thinking through how the rebalance will impact these funds. So we appreciate the transparent nature of the Russell indices, and the PM teams will think through things like trying to understand the turnover in the portfolios, the adds and deletes coming in and out of the portfolios. And they're preparing, this year it's looking like it's going to be about a $14 billion trade coming into Friday. And they want to make sure, very thoughtful approach. They have over 3,000 different names they need to adjust in the portfolio. And the goal is smooth trading day coming into the close.
And Johan, as an agency-only broker during the Russell rebalance, how do you prepare for increased trading activity that typically accompanies the event?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of work leading up to this event. In the last few weeks, been working very closely with clients, making sure that they need what they have from us as an agency-only broker. And this week, we are in a code freeze. We are just monitoring our trading system, making sure it's healthy. We run diagnostics and be ready for hopefully a big event on Friday.
Catherine, what are some of the major changes that's happening with indexes this year?
I want to say, compared to last year, the break point was steady, 4.6 billion between the large cap and small cap Russell 1000, Russell 2000 indexes. So largely you see stability in that sense. However, you see the bigger companies in the index got bigger since last year. Smaller companies got smaller. So you're seeing more of a divergence. You're seeing more healthcare companies and financial companies coming in, as well as 7 IPOs into the Russell 2000, 2 IPOs into the Russell 1000. So it is largely a story of replenishing the indexes and accurately reflecting the large cap, small cap. What's interesting on the growth and value side is a handful of magnificent 7 companies, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta have dipped a little bit into the value side because of the underlying fundamentals, largely due to book to price and long-term or medium-term growth forecasts. So, you're seeing some of these underlying dynamics that are changing in the markets reflected in the annual rebalance.
How important is transparency to this process?
Transparency is absolutely critical to our process. Russell US indexes are very well known and widely appreciated by our index trackers for the transparency we provide. We publish our rules. We ranked on April 30th. The preliminary announcements began on May 23rd, and so that gives the market a month to prepare for the trade coming into the Friday rebalance this year, June 27th. So, transparency as well as a well-telegraphed rebalance is very much appreciated and widely recognized by the industry.
And Giang, what's significant about the Nasdaq closing cross?
Yeah, I mean, the closing cross is a very important time of day for any given day. The closing cross generates the benchmark price that a lot of equity derivative type of products, and funds that are U.S. equity based used to be the benchmark price. So, Kathy talked about their PMs and their traders trying to have a very smooth and seamless experience on Reconstitution Day, and oftentimes they are using the Nasdaq closing cross to ensure that they're getting that closing price to minimize tracking error and really getting that deep and ample liquidity that is available in our closing cross. So it's really important. Like, we've invested heavily into the resiliency of our closing cross. Last year, we did 2.9 billion shares, as you mentioned in the beginning, on Russell Reconstitution Day. So, we're prepared. We're there to ensure that it's a seamless experience.
And Kathy, what key considerations does Vanguard take into account when adjusting the composition of their ETFs to align with the changes in the indexes?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that traders have to consider. I would say two in particular that they must balance, which is, on the one hand, trying to get the price as close to closing price so that they can track the benchmark tightly. But on the other hand, they have to factor in market impact. And so, for example, if they put all their trades through at close, they could clearly get the closing price and match the benchmark. But if they're putting a big buy-in, that could push up price and have market impact and hurt investors. So they're going to balance these factors, and they're going to consider not only the trades that they're putting into the market, but they're also going to factor in the broader ecosystem and what other traders might be doing who are managing to the benchmarks. So, for example, we know this year, I think it's going to be about 150 billion in two-way flow. They'll see if our position matches different other positions out there, and that will inform their trading strategy.
Yeah.
End of the day, it's about the best investment outcomes for the investors.
And Johan, this is a great question for you. Why is it important for clients to have access during an event as important as the Russell rebalance?
Yeah, I think it's very important for our customers. We are usually liquidity providers, so we are an important component of making sure that the market stays efficient during an event like this.
Catherine, what with the Russell rebalance, because it's typically the largest volume day of the year, especially around the market close, is that concerning to FTSE Russell?
No, because of the mechanisms that we have in place. You both talked to how Nasdaq has a closing cross. The traders are preparing, the liquidity providers are prepared. So there's been this ecosystem that's developed over the past 4 decades around the Russell Index's reconstitution. So absolutely, I do feel that the market is ready for the reconstitution on Friday.
And Giang, Nasdaq listed ETFs, how is price discovery impacted with the Nasdaq closing cross?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the closing cross and the underlying securities and how that marks the close, the benchmark price. I mean, for ETFs, like the Vanguard ETFs that tracking Russell ETFs that are listed on Nasdaq, also benefit from that resilient and deterministic closing cross. But for ETF in particular, because they're derivatively priced securities, we do have additional guardrails and mechanism to ensure that they're closely tracking the underlying value that they have. So we have incentives for from a trading perspective to ensure that market makers are participating in the cross. There's tighter closing cross collars to ensure that the prices don't deviate too much. So really thinking about both the trading experience of the underlying securities, but also the ETFs that are holding them as well.
It's incredible this all happens at the speed in which it does. It really is a lot to wrap your head around. Wrapping your head around it, speaking of, how does the Vanguard product management team, how are you supporting investors during an event as significant as this?
Sure, and have to give a plug for my team. So Of course, our focus year-round is to provide great client experience when it comes to using our products. But as it comes into the rebalance, a lot of investors will want to understand what's in their products. So as you mentioned, Catherine, there might be something that would be surprising, like the shift of the Mag 7 more towards value. We'll get questions that we'll field on our team to help understand that underlying, as well as how that might impact portfolio construction. And then certainly we have our in-house cap markets team. I think they work closely with you at Nasdaq, and that team wants to make sure that that strong partnership with market makers plays out, and that there's great liquidity in the collective fund. They'll help with the primary, making sure that there's as minimal frictions as possible, so that in the secondary, smooth trading as if it wasn't rebalance day.
So to wrap up here, Johan, how does Lime's role as a member of the Nasdaq with direct market access?
Yeah.
How does that contribute to maintaining liquidity and price efficiency for the market during the Russell Reconstitution?
Sure. Like I mentioned before, many of our clients are liquidity providers. I think they help making sure that there is enough liquidity for the event to happen in a smooth way. Also, what's important to us and our customers is stability and be able to process a lot of messages in a short period of time, because there's a lot of things that's going to happen close to the close, so to speak, and clients need to have a product and a technology platform that can process a lot of messages.
All right, appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.